Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of 1019, the Watch Commander. It's been a minute, and we are back here. And let me see if I can get all these. Oh, only anxious one is here. Thanks for checking in. We got some people, but it's been a minute since we've been here, and we have a really special guest here, Knocko Nolan from LAPD, NYPD, did some NY or FBI task force stuff. So we're going to get into that a little bit. But welcome everybody, and Knocko, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ken. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you guys having me. And shout out to CC Woods for turning me on to you guys. So,
CC
I,
Woods,
yes.
CC.
The
Um,
wood.
so
Oh,
there, Rick, check it out. Check out who's here.
that's zippity doodah.
Zippity Doodah's here, and if you don't know, Knocko, Zippity is Mrs. Mike Bornman. So we always
Oh, we got to keep it PG rated now.
PG rated, and
No, no.
she does not mind slapping him around a little bit right here in the in the comments too.
Hey, there's Amy.
60 in the Madera County, 60 degrees. Is that
No,
what's happening? Or am I
that Amy is she's connected to the Madera County Sheriff's Department up here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and she does the foundation, and we give money to them and their canine program.
Oh, that's cool. Hey, Amy, nice to see you. So it's been a minute since we've been here. We were gone 1 week because, well, election night, and I was so stupid, man. Because so the polls didn't close till 8 p.m. in on the West Coast, and I'm on the TV at 10 a.m. or so, like something's gonna happen. I don't know. I guess the electricity of the day kind of got to me. But then I don't know. You know what? I kind of want to get into this for half. Well, no, I want to wait until the end because I want to talk to Knocko. Um, so Knocko, I was telling you earlier that before, and when I was on Facebook, I would go into the LEPD, retired groups and stuff like that, and then I'd see this name, Knocko Nolan. I'm going, Knocko Nolan. Everybody go, Knocko Nolan. It was like some mythical figure on Facebook. I go, who is Knocko Nolan? Because apparently I was gone from the department for a little bit, but not that long, because I've always been. And then I got over to Instagram, started getting to know some people there, and the people there were going, Knocko Nolan. Who is Knocko? So I did some Googling a while back, found out that Knocko is been around for a little bit on the podcast scene, talking about maybe tactics or survival shows, things like that. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but and then some jujitsu stuff. And you've just been around a while. So tell us a little bit about you and how did you get the name Knocko?
That goes way back to my obsession with the movie that was it's probably 100 years old now. Some people might have heard of it called Jaws. There was a very granular line that was uttered by Robert Shaw's character, Captain Quint. And it my insurance agent started calling me that for it was my email address way back when in like the AOL days, and then it just kind of stuck. It's like when someone starts calling you something, you don't deny it or say shut them down. You just embrace it, or else then it gets 10 times worse. So I
Oh,
just embraced it, and it kind of became my nom de guerre, if I could draw back to my French speaking days in sixth grade. So
I actually Googled that about 3 days ago, and it came up that Knocko is slang for narco cops, and the reason is because Knocko. This is what I saw on the interweb. Knocko is they knocked for the warrants and stuff like that, and that's what's on the internet. I don't know.
yeah, I mean everything on the internet's 100% true, so it's got to be that.
Exactly.
So I thought it had to do with police work, but you've had it for a long time.
Yeah, it's kind of like are you guys familiar with Jack Dunphy?
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
a retired LAPD under a pseudonym, so
yeah.
his thing goes back to a movie as well. So it's
Oh,
kind of movie. That's the movie aficionado artistic side of my brain in action. So
did you ever see or read anything from Jack Dunphy, Mike?
No.
He was what was that platform? Thanks, Mike. What was that platform that he was on too? It was the
He's been on
C
a few. He was in the Times for a while. He was on PJ Media, I want to say.
PJ
He's
Media.
been, yeah, National Review. He's bounced around a couple of different things.
Well,
Has
oh,
he?
was he? I'm sorry, was he an L.A. Times writer at
Not a
all?
writer. He was an LAPD cop, active, and he would write under his pen name, and but I guess a contributor, maybe, editorial
Oh, okay.
guest
I
type of
I may
thing.
have seen those. I may have seen them. Yeah.
He was one of those guys that he would give the scoop on stuff, be very honest, brutal, but you never knew who it was. And I don't even know if do we even know who he was today?
There's always been, oh, I know him, I met him, he copped out, but you're like, whatever. But it is true that the department was trying to smoke him out because he was making some waves, and they were trying to get him over, I believe, to like media relations, like, hey, we really like what you do, and we want you to
Yeah.
work with us. How
Sure,
that
wink,
goes.
wink.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. They never because he goes back easily to the '90s. He was posting stuff, and I'm trying to think where I ever. Well, it had to be on the internet, but I can't think of where on the internet I would have seen him. But he was famous for stuff, and we just never knew who he was. But so you were brought up in New York?
From born and reared. My tactics instructor said, "Don't say raised; they only raise cattle." So that's what I learned in my tactics school from Mike Parler. So yeah, I grew up in Queens, New York, and actually my partner from Brooklyn, New York, just chimed in. My partner Steve from Central Division. So it's up, Steve. So yeah, I grew up there till I was about moved out here when I was 21 to 22.
Yeah. So how did you end up getting from New York all the way out to California?
Was always a fan or admirer, I should say, of LAPD and all the major police departments. I had the pulse on, and was very into the history of old American policing and its origins and roots and what have you. And LAPD was always an outlier, so I was always fascinated with the West Coast culture, whether it was like BMX, skateboarding, surfing, music, anything with the arts. Always kind of started off on the West Coast, so I always had this draw to the ocean and to that other side of my brain, and just became fascinated with it. And the opportunity arose in the mid 90s when they started recruiting heavily, and they were doing expedited testing at the time where you could come to LA and bang out the whole background process in 4 days. So a buddy of mine heard the commercial on the radio, and the rest was history.
Did you ever think about applying to the sheriffs, and why not?
I did, as big as they are, really didn't have a whole grasp on them because, kind of, movies and books, the majority was always LAPD or NYPD. And
True.
there wasn't much out there about the sheriffs to do a deep dive in. So, yeah, just wasn't much out there. So naturally, the LAPD silo was way bigger, and I gravitated toward that.
Yeah, they're well. There you go, Mike. I mean, I don't. There's not much you can add to that.
There, you know what? I wouldn't even try. But I will say that growing up out here in L.A., PD and sheriff's territories, I just applied for both and took the job with the first one that popped up. I
Yeah.
think but you know what? I think I made the right choice. There's a lot of things that I liked about the sheriff's department. As time went on, in my opinion, sorry guys, I thought LAPD was pretty top heavy in patrol functions, and it's you couldn't make an arrest, I think, without a sergeant coming out and giving you the okey doke or something, and we just scoop them up, throw in the back of the car, and drive in the station. So a little
Well,
more
we
freewheeling, I think.
we did that. We just arrested people, put them in our car, and went to the watch commander and got them booked.
Bah.
But we
Watch.
don't need no sergeant,
We don't need no stinking sergeant.
no stinking sergeant.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Knocko, I'm not ashamed to say that I applied for the sheriff as well, and I didn't pass my oral interview. But sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Yeah, you were pretty sad on that day, but
So
okay.
No, that's why I tell kids to like apply everywhere, and whoever
Yep.
pops up first,
Yep.
grab onto it, and then reassess, see what you like, what you don't like.
Yeah.
I talk to candidates all the time, and they go, got a call from this department, and they're like my second or third choice." I said, "Why'd you apply to them? If they're going to call you, police jobs don't just show up. You're very, very fortunate if you get a call from a police department, they want to
Yeah.
hire you. So don't be applying to places you don't want to
You know
work."
what? I figured that out. I actually applied for Burbank PD, and I went through and did their testing. It was like just a couple of day process. And at the end of everything, I knew I'd passed. I'm like, oh, please, God, I hope they don't pick me.
I want to be a sheriff.
Oh, I don't want to do that. Well, at the time, it was LAPD or sheriff. A real quick story. I was told, by the city LAPD. They said, we take X-rays and everything, and you have a bilateral transitional vertebrae.
Oh
And I'm like,
no,
I'm not. I'm like, oh fuck, am I dying?
you're
What
gonna
happens?
die. You're gonna die.
And then and they disqualified me behind that. And then the sheriff's department, they called me up and they go, "Did you know you have a bilateral transitional vertebrae?" And I go, "No. I mean, should I do my will and all that kind of shit now?" And they're like, "I go, what does it do?" And they go, nothing. It's just you have bilateral transitional vertebrae between I think your thoracic and or whatever, and they'll DQ you sometimes because they don't want to have that medical issue pop up, 10 years down the road and have to pay. But the sheriff's department was like, dude, don't even worry about it. So that was kind of like how I ended up with the sheriffs because LAPD decided they didn't want my transitional vertebrae fucking up their department.
So you were like the original trans cop, you could say almost, right?
I'd never looked at it that way, but I guess suppose you're right. And you know what? At least I did it in a bilateral fashion. So
Hey, that's why they call it practicing medicine, and you get second opinions, right? The first one usually doesn't count. So there you go. You got your second opinion, and you're good to go.
yeah,
Oh,
but
that's funny.
in fact, there was, God, this is taking me back to those days. There was this little guy, we called him Tattoo, really little guy. And, and he did the eye exam for the sheriff's department, in the county. They send you through all this stuff. And the guy walks in and goes, "How you doing?" I go, "I'm fine." They go, "What do you think your vision is?" I go, "I don't know, 20/20, 20/40, whatever." And he goes, "Okay." And that was it. Just checked off the box and shoved me on down to the next group of psychos. But yeah, boy, that takes me back. It was fun times, good memories of actually going through it and passing all tests and everything.
Well, Knocko has some good stories about his background process. It
Well,
didn't go smooth.
I wanted to back up. I mean, it says here that NYPD, blah, blah, blah. So you did that before you came out to California?
No, after from about 2000 2004, and when I had to go back home to take care of family business, and when I came back to LAPD, they had like a real expedited process for the guys that left, especially during the Chief Bernard Parks era.
Oh,
Uh,
oh.
so I had to come back, and when I was doing the eye exam, like you guys were mentioning, they DQ'd me on what was it, depth perception. They said, "Oh, yeah, you have whatever the term, lack of depth perception, whatever." I said, "Well, I beg to differ." And they're like, what can I do?" "Well, just go to a optometrist or whatever and see if you can get a second opinion." So I went to my local guy in Queens, New York, and he thought they were nuts. He's like, "What?" He gave me a few punctuatory tests and sent me on my way, and I mailed them the results, and I got back on without a problem. But originally, what Ken was referring to was what should have been my first clue about LAPD. I was like 99% through with my background investigation, and my original background investigator, guy named Anslow, he was awesome, old school cop. He retired and handed off to some newbie, which I wish I remembered her name. So he was very interesting, to say the least. So he calls me up and say, "Hey, everything looks great. 99% of your stuff is completed. Awesome. We're just missing one thing." I said, "Oh, what's that?" They said, "Car insurance." I said, "Oh, that's a ground ball. I don't have a car." So he's like, "What do you mean you don't have a car?" I said, "Well, I live in New York City. The subway's a couple blocks away from me. I take that to go to work. I don't need a car." And she just couldn't understand that. I wanted to say, "Have you been east of Vegas?" It was like, there's a place, big urban cities that people don't drive. But I couldn't say that. And she She asked me, "Is your driver's license suspended?" I said, "Absolutely not. Feel free to run it again." And she's like, "Well, I don't understand. Why don't you have a car?" And I have to say, a couple blocks away, there's this thing called the subway, and it's a lot easier than trying to find parking in my neighborhood. So, a long story longer, she comes back, calls me a few days later, and says, "Well, I can't process this because I have this checkoff box that says insurance, yes or no, and it still says no. So if you want this job, you have to get car insurance." So I tell her, it's like, maybe I'm not articulating myself correctly to you. Is there anyone else I could speak to? Maybe it's just a connectivity part on my end. So no, there's absolutely no one else you can speak to. No supervisors, no other investigators. You either get this or you're out. And okay, so somehow I found some kind of some guy, some car insurance agent, explained the situation to him, and he was like, "Are you sure you want this job? These people sound like morons." And I was like, "Yeah, unfortunately, yeah."
Embarrassing.
So I'm like, "Just give me something that says I have car insurance." So I pretty much insured my feet. I called her up, faxed it to her. She was ecstatic, and then I was in.
I I was there. That was in '96, and I was there in '97. That's never been a rule, so I'm not sure what. So what you should have done to make her happy is you should have gone and spent, like, at the time, maybe 15, 20,000 on a car,
Sure,
and then insure it.
of course, and
Because
drive it.
yeah, so that embarrassingly enough, that was not the common way of doing things. I'm not sure what happened there, but there. I will say this: there were, in my time that I was there, it was when I was there for 4 years when it was LAPD, and if people came in and they weren't good background investigators, they would ship them out. Um, it's not like today under the personnel department, but that's another story. So, and I do want to say, Captain Mike, that um, the reason that Knocko went to NYPD is because he could. He just Knocko goes if Knocko applies, he gets to go anywhere he wants. And then NYPD was there, one of the top three in the nation. And then he said, "Hey, I don't want to be here anymore." And then you came back.
I did. I did. Well, me and Brant were hopscotching across the coast there, so
Did you know him?
I followed him. I knew of him. I met, I spoke to him on the phone. I knew people that were very close to him, so he was a great catalyst, I think, when he came to LAPD, and I kind of see that with Jim McDonnell. I think
Oh yeah.
LAPD's ripe for a renaissance, and Jimmy Mack is going to kick that off. I believe he was probably a round peg in a square hole by the sheriffs, which hey, not everyone's meant to be in multiple departments, and God bless those guys. They got someone I guess maybe worse. That's even worse for them. They think. Be careful what you wish for, like they say.
Yeah.
When we wanted Parks, people wanted Willie Williams gone, and they got Parks.
Oh,
So it's like, whoa,
Man.
you went inside, you got inside. But anyway, just on a positive note, I think Jimmy Mack's going to bring LAPD back and make it. We're back, baby, as they say.
well, and I'll chime in. I was not a big fan of his with the sheriff's department. It was pretty clear he was trying to turn it into LAPD Junior, and there were a lot of big things going on there that he didn't seem to be focusing on. And his loss to Villanueva was a kind of a self-inflicted wound. I think his people were telling him, "Oh, you got it in the bag. You got the 50%, whatever, blah blah blah," and bam. But I do think that he is back where he belongs. I think he's going to do great things there. He is, he bleeds blue just like I bleed tan and green, and I think he's going to be a fine addition there. And I was happy that he made it, frankly, because I've met him a couple of times, and he's a good dude, and I think he'll do wonderful things for them. And I wish him nothing but the best. So tell us about
Yeah,
you. What's going on?
but I don't think people just see him as the sheriff. But at the end of the day, he's just a cop that lateraled, and
Mhm.
lateraling over to an agency. I've done it twice already. It's very hard. It's hard to join. Of course, you bring baggage from your past lawsuits and uses of force and all that. But then just joining another organization, I always tell people that I joined you. You didn't join me, so I'm going to adopt to your ways. I'm not going to inflict you with my ways. So maybe there was a little bit of that, like the captain said, he was trying to turn into a mini thing. It's like, no, you could change a few little things, but the sheriff's department's the sheriff's department. You join them. So you got to adopt to their ways and maybe interject some leadership and show them some other things, some other tricks you had up your sleeve. But it's very hard for cops to lateral and swallow their pride and do things someone else's way.
Yeah,
Yeah, agreed.
generally, in all the time I've been around, usually when LEPD chiefs go be a chief somewhere else, almost always they don't like them. I think they try and make them LEPDs, but I think I didn't hear a lot about Jim when he was at Long Beach, but certainly when he went to the sheriff's, people were going nuts.
Yeah, it lit a fire. It really did. And like I said, I think he'd have been a shoe-in if he would have kept to the campaign trail the last couple of weeks. I think he got some bad advice from advisors. He should have just continued to do what he was doing, and he would have gotten over the hump. But I mean, you got Alex coming in and promising that he's going to be progressive and make some changes, and yeah, the rest is history. And so is he. So you know, but then we end up with this dude there now, and I again not a fan, but we'll see. I don't want to jinx a guy. He's still got another year and a half in office or whatever. I would like to see him gone though.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
going back to Bernard Parks, Knocko, what a mess.
Bernie.
He did not like LEPD at all. But did Knocko freeze?
Oh, I think he did. You know,
Knocko's frozen.
he, yeah, I scared him and he froze. Oh, he's back.
Oh, what now? Now what, Mike? He was playing.
Yeah, it was funny. I was walking down the street one day when I was working down at the hall, and who'd I see burping on down the street was Willie Williams. And talk about not cutting a uniform appearance and
Mm,
not being qualified. I mean, he was more interested in being at the pass line at Caesar's Palace than he was, watching his troopers. And yeah, I know he had a hard time getting post certified, remember? And
hmm
couldn't carry a gun, couldn't pass posts, but liked rolling them bones. So adios, Willie. I mean, that was a disaster.
Yeah, he got a bad deal, man. He came in after Gates, and he
Y-
was Willie from Philly, and the league had a field day with him because the Thin Blue Line, the publication they put out every month, they put him on the cover with these comical things. But well, he wasn't liked because he wasn't he was the first not LEPD, and
You
people
you
didn't.
think that's all it was?
But
I
yeah, he didn't fit the uniform.
I saw more than that, man. He did not. I grew up in a lot of LAPD areas, man. I always respected those dudes, those beautiful frickin' uniforms, and they're always cool. And all of a sudden, you got this big blimpy dude walking around, and he did not fit the image, and that was part of the deal. But I don't think he fit the mentality either.
No.
Yeah, they set him up to fail too. They were at a lot of subterfuge going on, but in retrospect, compared to the last few chiefs that we've had, he's glowing because he wasn't vindictive. He wasn't out to hurt anyone. He gave us the flexible work schedule and a lot of equipment, and he wasn't out there to hammer anyone. Was he the most effective? That's debatable, but he was a good person, and that's what we need is just someone that's decent, has a good heart, and we could show them the rest. If you have a good command staff underneath them that's supporting
Yeah,
them and not looking to
Hmm.
rat fuck them, which they
I
were from day one. So
I really dug Gage though.
Of course.
I really like Daryl, man. I thought he was a good dude. I mean, we'd go up to LAPD's academy and to have lunch up there with the boys, and he'd be up there just in his civvies, going out shooting at the range and everything, just like one of the guys. And I really appreciated that about him.
Yeah, he was a good chief, and that was back in the days when uh, they had civil service protection. You couldn't get rid of Gates,
Yeah,
and I remember him, Michael. There was what was his name, Michael Wu or something like that, a council member, and Gates. There's a video of him out there, and he's just dressing down this councilman and telling him that about how you don't say things like that about LEPD and my people and blah blah. He just dressed him down. I don't think you'd see that today. Where I don't know, Knocko, you've been around for a long time as far as LEPD goes, and I just don't see the Chiefs. And maybe Jim will change this, but as far as the Chiefs backing their guys. That was I just started with Charlie Beck and then Michael Moore, and I just was not pleased with either of them.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I wish Gates would have backed the Foothill Division cops a little better, and then yeah, George Bush hammering them at the time and sicking DOJ on them. So I mean, as time goes on, we tend to glorify all these past chiefs and forget about all the bad things that they did as well. I mean, he was
Sure.
not a saint by whatsoever means, and definitely wasn't a savvy politician where it's all great, to thumb your nose in people's faces and grandstand, but you still have to get funding from the city council. You still have to play nice with the mayor, and of course, it's not about you; it's about your people. So when he did all those things, that shut down the pipeline for good funding and good relations, and it just had a huge collateral effect as well. I think that people don't really think about. So that chief has to play both sides of, hey, I have to play nice with them because it's going
Hmm.
to affect my budget. It's going to affect hiring. And LAPD was always understaffed, and that could have been avoided by somewhat playing nice. You don't have to bend over and take a knee, but you do have to acknowledge people and have a collaborative effort. Like anything else in the world, it's like you know you can only stomp on someone so much before they bite you back. So I think that's what was happening back then as well. And
Hey,
Hmm.
it was a
who's
shame
your
to see his career and at that, and he had such a glorious career, and to see it go out in flames like that literally was
yeah
not not
who's
not
who
great.
is your favorite chief out of the ones you worked with?
My favorite chief, by far, Bratton, and he's no saint. He
Yeah.
had a lot of he had a lot of baggage as well, but I think he bridged that gap of getting good funding, getting good relations. I mean, hell, he was dealing with a mayor that was the head of the LA's ACLU, and he played him like a fiddle. We got everything we wanted pretty much, and very effective. So
Hey,
He
I got Steven just wrote that about presumed guilty. I got an autographed copy of that.
what?
Yeah, I got an autographed copy from Mr. Coon.
Oh my goodness! Did you know him?
Yeah. No, but I got an autographed copy of it.
That's all that matters.
yeah,
Did
Stacy has two master's degrees. I mean, he was on his way to high level policing, and
dang.
very very accomplished guy. And
Yeah.
again, sad to see his career go out the way it did. I mean, complete scapegoat. He didn't lay a hand on Rodney King, and did the best he could with the tools that he was given.
Yeah.
Complete
Now,
scapegoat.
what do you guys think about that though? Because I hear stories from sergeants today where they're not even in the room and they're getting burned for stuff that their guys did, and they're not anywhere in the room, and they say something about control, blah
Command
blah
and
blah.
control.
Yeah, and I'm like, how do you burn somebody when they're not even there? And you're supposed to treat
Well,
cops like children or something like that, and then they're burning them today. I hear from sergeants in the field today, and they're sick of it.
you know what though? I've taken responsibility for my people before. I'm the one who oversees them and I train them, and it's my job to make sure they do the right thing. And when they do something stupid, okay, they're under me. Throw me in the heap with them. I'm not going to leave them out to hang them out to dry. But it's a lot worse now. Yeah, I agree. They're just, we've had people that have been investigated for things that they allegedly did, and they were off duty that day. So everybody's nodding their head. Yeah, it happens a lot now.
Mm,
So, and it's you're basically presumed guilty in today's environment. And
hmm.
I'm hoping that changes too. Let's go back to Knocko. I'm really interested in the back and forth cross country crap you
I
were
was going to
doing.
ask him about that.
Yeah, what the
Ping
hey?
ping pong policing.
Yeah.
How long did you go back with NYPD?
I was there around 2000, 2004, so it was good to be part of the 9/11 rescue and recovery. That if I was
Hmm.
back in LA, that would have killed
Mm,
me to have been stuck out here for that. So it was the best and worst of times, as they say.
yeah. So what's the differences between LAPD and NYPD?
I mean, they used to be 180 degrees diametrically opposed, and uh, not for a good thing, but nowadays they're
Hmm.
very alike, which is, like I said, not a good thing. It used to be LAPD had like the premier patrol division. It was like the model, the gold standard, I thought, and NYPD was the exact opposite. And but NYPD investigative services, all their detective bureau stuff was beyond top notch, and LAPD's was, no fault of their own. It's just how the detective division's kind of like a stepsister within the department, and then the way the hours are situated in the court system and all that. So
Mhm.
I don't think they really have their chance to shine as much as NYPD detectives do.
And I was talking to my wife, in fact, just yesterday, and we were talking about the differences between LA City and New York and how to police them. And I think LA City is 4 million people, and I think it's almost 500 square miles if you include all the foothills and everything. It's not quite 500 square miles, but 4 million people. And New York, I want to say, has a smaller footprint, but don't they have like 8 million people? But it's all vertical.
Right. Right. Although there's been reports that say that LA is denser now than New York City, which
Oh,
sounds crazy, but who knows?
yeah.
But yeah, and NYPD's way of solving problems was just throwing mass resources at it. Just flooding a certain area with every asset in the world. At the time when I was there, it capped out at 41,000, I want to say, cops, and it's shrunk drastically, like LAPD has. So it was completely different environment.
I cannot imagine that many cops.
Mm-mm.
Yes.
Well, and that does that include the transit guys and all those others that are all part of that?
Now it does. When Bratton came on board, they merged the housing police and the transit cops all in one. So now it's all one big happy dysfunctional family.
Right.
And I heard that the way they get the number 30 plus thousand NYPD cops is do they include civilians in that number?
No, no, they probably do now to maybe fudge the numbers a little bit, but no, they didn't. That was just pure uniformed members of the service.
And when you hear about like I don't know if they call it transit police and all these other port police, is everything LAPD? I mean NYPD?
Except there's a Port Authority Police Department that is in charge of, like you mentioned, the ports. So that was they were have the ports, and then they had the World Trade Center and different bridge and tunnels. So NYPD's footprint was pretty much everything except for that,
So
because that was a jurisdictional thing. It bridged, New Jersey and Connecticut
oh.
and that type of thing.
So we have a question, and so I'm gonna change it a little bit. Thank you, Jeff, for that question. What's Knocko's most memorable LEPD and NYPD stories?
Oh wow, put me on the spot. Well, since the captain's wife's here, I can't go X-rated, but so,
You don't know the captain's wife, pal.
Zippy, is that okay?
Yeah, she's
yeah.
she's very used to my potty mouth. I wouldn't worry about it.
Oh, but memorable police story. I mean, like I alluded to before, is being down at ground zero for the year plus was just extraordinary. I blacked out most of it, unbeknownst. When I get together with
Mm.
NYPD buddies, it kind of rekindles things. But you just kind of, it was like getting knocked out every night when you went home. So you kind of forget about a lot of what happened. It was working 16-hour days or what have you, 6 days a week, 7 days a week sometimes. And but my most profound memory was just how the city came together as one, and people from all around the country flooded that area to volunteer.
Mhm.
And like I was just thinking about the other night when Mike Tyson, during the Tyson fight, I was telling my girl about Holyfield and my encounter with Evander Holyfield. People don't know, is a great heavyweight boxer, beat Tyson. And I was taking a break. They had along the pier, along Manhattan, they had boats situated for like recovery workers, rescue and recovery, to take breaks. That had all these like little litters laid out, like a MASH type of mentality. And so on our break, I would just crash out for an hour. So I'm sleeping, and I feel like this nudge on the top of my back, like, hey, hey. So I think I'm dreaming. I wake up and I look up, and it's Evander Holyfield. So I just see this huge head staring down at me. He's like, "Yo, what's up?" I'm like, I'm thinking of Dream World. I'm like, "Hey, how are you?" And he's like, "Hey, I just wanted to say, thank you for everything that you did down here and blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "All right, thanks." And I just went right back to sleep. So when my alarm goes off, I finally get up and cobwebs out of my eyes. The whole place is empty. When I showed up, it was pretty crowded. So I walk over to the guy where we had to sign in, sign out, and I said, "Hey, this might sound really stupid, but was Evander Holyfield here?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it sure was. Yeah, he was, talking to guys." I'm like, "Oh wow!" I'm like, I completely thought that was a dream or a nightmare or whatever. But uh, yeah, that was little crazy things like that. Really were good highlights at when things like that, the Tyson fight come up. Good memories to offset all the bad stuff that we had to see down there. So
What?
that's
So you were there. You were there in 9/11.
I wasn't working. I was in upstate New York with my family, but yeah, right after that, everyone scrambled down to the city and then took care of business for a year or so.
I do. I want to ask about that. Mike, did you have a question or?
Yeah, I was going to just say something about all that going on. And we have a guy, he moved from New York to become a deputy, but he started out as LA, in NY Fire Department. And he joined right before 9/11. And after that happened, for like 2 years straight, they had him on funeral details. And he said that just killed him. He after a couple of years of that, he went and came across the country and became a deputy sheriff for a while. But just incredible, the stories that come out of there.
There's this. There's this photo that um, where you probably know him, Chaplain Mike
Hmm.
Knocko,
Yeah.
where they show this photo of him standing out with the guys and blah blah blah, and then the next photo is him being carried out of the building, and he's not alive anymore. But that, do you know anything about him or?
I just know people that knew him, and they just, beyond what he did that day, they just said this guy was like a saint. And of course, he was down there and tending to the lads and taking care of business. So yeah, a very, very influential man and very revered before that. And of course, after that, it was, you didn't have to say anything after that, what that guy meant to everyone.
That I mean, if you ever get a chance, you guys, to look up that story, I think it's Chaplain Mike, and I think his
Yeah,
last name is
Father Michael Judge, I
Michael
think.
Judge.
Yeah, and it's not Michael, common spelling. It's like Mychal, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
just if you take a look at that photo, that just I think that photo. There's so many photos about 9/11, but that one just hit me really hard. And I think within the last month, they just had an article that some first responder, I think it was NYPD, he just passed away from his injuries from that day as well. And there's still a lot of officers that are struggling and are dying still today
Hmm.
from that. And
Yes.
you probably have a lot of friends that have tons of stories. And are they still suffering from the PTSD, especially every nine
Oh,
eleven?
oh yeah. From physical to mental, I come in contact with those guys quite often, and unfortunately, yes, yeah, it's a real thing, and people still dying from it. Personal friends of mine, mentors, yeah, it's the death toll still goes on, which is horrible.
Are there are there a lot of coppers that are still on the job from that time?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. I mean, it's been, what has it been now, like 23 or 24 years? I'm sure there are. Actually, there is. I'm good friends with one that I know personally. But yeah, it's NYPD used to be traditionally like 20 and out. They do 20 years and then move on. But as society is changing, where people are getting married later in life and having kids later on in life, they're starting to extend that. But for the most part, after 20, unless you're a captain above, they move on.
I can't even imagine. Mike, what were you doing on 9/11?
I was sitting in an office at Pitch's North facility. Yeah, I'm sure somebody said that. I mean, I'm sure everybody remembers where they were when that happened.
Yeah.
It was just, in fact, I was watching the coverage, and this news anchor is blabbing away talking about the first one, and behind him, you see the second plane come through and hit the building, and the guy just keeps blabbing on. It's like, dude, look behind you. It was just surreal.
Yeah, my partner Steve mentioned uh, Bagpipe Brothers, a book. If I could recommend the best documentary I've seen on the whole 9/11 aspect, but just on a personal level, it's called Twin Towers, and it's about two brothers, the Vigiano brothers, and one was a fireman and one was a policeman on NYPD's version of SWAT. They called it Emergency Service Unit, and it's about maybe 35 minutes, but it's probably one of the most impactful documentaries you'll ever see. It's about the two brothers that perished, and their father was a fireman. So unbelievable story.
Yeah.
There's there was one that I saw, and it was two. I want to say it was two brothers, and they had accents, like they were maybe from Europe or something like that. And I want to say it was almost like 90 minutes, but they had been taking cameras through the whole area, and then the one brother lost track of his other brother, and he didn't know where he was, and they're filming this whole thing. But I think within the last 5 years, I stopped watching 9/11 stuff like that. It's just
Too
difficult.
s- too sad.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's the most terrible thing to watch and to relive it all the time. And you've got the photos of the flying man and or the falling man or whatever they call that, and just a really difficult time. And I can't even imagine NYPD and all the PTSD and everything. And they lost um, so many officers and firefighters and stuff like that. It's just a difficult time. And every year, I post every year. I post something on Instagram, but I just get it's just too sad to watch.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'll never forget it, but I try every day to forget it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It enters my mind
Were
almost every day.
so you were off duty, and did were they mobilizing everybody, and did you just
Oh,
get a call?
well, yeah, all the power lines were down for cell phones and all that. So you just knew like we're at war, and I'm going down there and getting a piece of it and contributing. So yeah, they mobilized everyone. I think I checked my answer machine a couple of days later and then heard heard one of our admin people left a message, but it was obvious. Everyone
Yeah.
was all hands on deck.
And it looks like Mike does Mike P know you?
I'm sure I know a lot of Mikes, but what's up, Mike P?
Sounds like he knows you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's have you been to the memorial since then?
You know what? Like what you were saying to try to avoid that. Yeah, I have no inclination to go down there. The memorial's right here. Maybe I never say never, but yeah, it's pretty painful to want to go down there. And I didn't agree with with the Freedom Tower. I'm like, hey, build those towers again,
Hmm.
make them higher. Let's go. So that whole Freedom Tower thing and how long it took them and the politics behind that, I wasn't a fan. So yeah, no desire to go down there.
Uh, what so then when did you go back to LAPD?
2004.
2004. And what made you come back?
All my family stuff was taken care of back home, and my parents retired down to Florida, and Bratton was out there in LA. So I was like, all right, my mission's done here in New York. Go back to LA where things were a lot sunnier and a lot funnier. So
So so a lot of people wonder about this. So what rank did you leave at?
I was I P2 or P3, I think.
And
Yeah.
then when you came back, did they give you your same rank and pay and everything?
Yes, it was weird. You come back, same everything. They made it very seamless, I got to say, other than the depth perception thing. And when I came back, I put in my wish. You get put in your wish list of 3 divisions, and every time I had a wish list, I never got what I wanted.
No.
And I got sent back to actually my old command, Hollywood Division, which turned out to be great. But you know how LAPD is; it's very transient. And when I came back, people didn't even know I went to another department. They just figured I went to another division. And so they're like, "Oh, hey, what's up? You came back, and where'd you go? This is South Central, South Bureau, whatever." But the funny thing was to show you how screwed up LAPD was and how new this program was. It was called restoration. So
Right.
they they call it restoration. And technically, I was my current rank, but I still had to be under the purview of a FTO for P3 training officer. So I did that for a few days, and I think I had maybe a month or two less than my FTO. And so he's like, why am I writing these daily, probationary things? He's like, frig this, you do this. I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Go have coffee, do your thing. So then I was doing it for a month or two. And then after that, I was, entering into what they call like the P1 book. It's technically I was a P1, but I wasn't. And no one was checking them. No one was asking me about them. So I'm like, hey, I'm not getting paid to do this. I just stopped doing it. So that was supposed to happen for like 6 months. I was supposed to get off probation. So after 2 months, no one said anything, no one questioned anything, and I just stopped doing it. He stopped doing his job, and then it just went into the ether.
Oh
I never
wow.
got any like certification, or no one asked. It was such administrative mess over there at LA. So to my advantage, which was great. So, but for the most part, yeah, it was like I never left. So they
Did,
made it seamless.
did they make you go to that 2 week academy thing to brush up or something like that?
Oh yeah, that was great. I was like wearing Dockers and a polo shirt, even though I don't play polo. And they had us like, watching these VHS tapes from like the '80s where it's all fuzzy, and someone had to drag out like the AV monitor, like in school. So we watched like a couple of tapes, and then we're done. And they're like, what do we do next? Like, oh, go work out. So we go work out for 2 hours. What do we do now? Go to lunch. So we go to lunch for 2 hours, and then after a while, I was like, oh, you guys already know what you guys just go home. So it was a gentleman's academy for the munch, which was great.
Oh, that's
God bless
funny.
those guys for treating us like gentlemen and not like guys just right off the boat.
So then Mike wanted to know. Mike never said.
Oh,
So
Mike
Mike
Pedro. I think this is Mike, my partner, Mike Pedroza. So
Mike Pedroza. Oh, hi, Mike.
I think so.
Um, so what happened after Hollywood? Because you made it all the way to detective and all that kind of stuff. So tell us about your adventures, because Mike is chomping at the bit to know Knocko.
Uh, I went to, like I said, I never got my wish list. When I made detective, I got sent to West LA, which is, you know, it's a retirement home pretty much. And God bless those guys for working there, but it was just so goddamn slow. I was arresting guys on my own, and which was very frowned upon. And I even did a consent search at someone's house by myself, and they're like, "Whoa, like, what the hell are you doing out there?" So yeah, it wasn't a good fit for me, and I'll never forget. God bless him. My D3, really interesting guy named Tom Vitrino. Think he was Mark Furman's partner at one time. Old school guy, great D3. I learned a lot from him. But like I think it was the first day I checked into West LA. I'm like, hey, sir. I was like, I worked detective assignments before, and it's always kind of been gentlemen's rules. You come and go as you please. From more or less, so you can come in from 6 in the morning to like 9 in the morning, anywhere between that. I was used to that type of mentality. They said, hey, sir, like, what's what time do you want us to come in? Blah blah blah, just to get the lay of the land. And he just said real slowly, he's like, well, you can come in anytime between 6 in the morning and 6 in the morning. I was like, Roger that, sir.
So much
So it was
leeway.
yeah, it was real tight rules there. And but so I did 2 months there, and I was like putting in all my markers, get me the hell out of here. And I ended up going. A guy named, you might know him. He worked backgrounds. Vinny Neglia. Did you
Yeah,
know Vinny?
yeah.
He was retired as a lieutenant too,
Hmm.
and rocked over to you guys and backgrounds. So he was a rabbi for me for a minute and got me over to juvenile division, which I don't have any kids. I kind of hate kids, so that
Good
was another
division.
great
Perfect fit.
fit. Yeah, the work was horrendous, but the squad was great. I mean, I learned so much from those guys. A bunch of jokesters, old school guys, still opening up scotch at the end of the day and having a belt from the
Hmm.
desk. We put a lot of bad guys away. My contribution. I was telling my old partner today, Steve. Juvenile division. I was up in the valley in San Fernando Valley, and most of our caseload was all undocumented nationals. And due to how these cases were laid out, it would be like a 12-year-old kid saying that the stepfather or the play uncle or whoever, sexually assaulted them or physically assaulted them. And the preponderance to get a filing from the DA's office was so high, you either needed a cop out or some kind of biological evidence, which, most sexual assault cases, you don't have that. All this stuff is late reporting. So it was extremely hard to get a conviction on these guys who are filing. But my trick weapon was I had a great contact in the county jail.
Mm.
Can you hear me? Am I
Yeah. No, you're
okay?
fine.
I had a great contact. Shout out to the sheriffs. I always had great relations with them. The OSG guys when I worked Crash, and ended up linking up with this ICE agent. So every guy that we arrested was almost undocumented, and so I'd make one call to this guy, boom, they'd ship this guy off back to the old country. So if we didn't get filings, hey, at least we got some relief, temporary relief before these guys hop the fence again one day. But it might take them some money and time. So we were quite effective with that. So I think that someone talked about the sanctuary city thing in the comments. So yeah, LA's always had that kind of bubble. Same thing with New York. And it goes back to Daryl Gates, who we mentioned earlier about Special Order 40. But
Hmm.
a lot of LAPD cops and don't know their policies and procedures and manual. I read that thing inside and out, not because I wanted to promote, but I just wanted to know what be effective and know what I could do and what I couldn't do. And so many cops repeat all these myths that were a lot of them are false. And one of them was the misconception of Special Order 40. And right in the verbiage, it says if you have a high grade misdemeanor or felony, you're supposed to write on the arrest report face sheet, undocumented alien, and notify Detective Headquarters Division. And they were supposed to get a detainer on them, an ICE hold. So people think we couldn't play with ICE or get people deported. We could. We just had to do it through certain regulations. And I was always trying to be efficient. I just skipped DHD, or I think it was DSD at the time I was there, and just went straight to ICE and just made everyone's job easier.
You're
And
just a
but
rebel.
yeah, just people didn't realize. Once I got the word out, I'm like, hey, no, we can. You're supposed to actually. It's in the manual that you're supposed to do this. So ship them back. Get a Nobel hold, and it gives you some time to build your case if you got one. If not, sayonara. So it is a sanctuary city, and then there's the perception of it, and then there's what really happens in everyday life, and sometimes those things don't meet. So yeah, um, that's that's the real deal about how LA is a sanctuary city.
Well, it's so stupid because a lot of people think that there was I posted a couple of photos on Instagram maybe 2 days ago or something like that, where there were people protesting in front of LAPD headquarters and they're holding signs LAPD out of something or whether uh, they think they have this misconception that LAPD officers go up and go, "Hey, so are you here legally?" And it's never been like that. LAPD officers don't care about whether you are undocumented or illegal or anything. And so people, for some reason, they think. And then today, LA City Council grandstanded and declared themselves a sanctuary city. And I'm like, that doesn't change anything. Tom Homan could give a crap
Hmm.
about your sanctuary city status. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I like Tom Homan.
Yeah, I mean the city council is all about symbolism and very little follow up or effectiveness. So it makes nice headlines, and when the guy runs for next office, he could say, "Oh, I was instrumental in declaring the city of LA a sanctuary city." So instead of saying,
Yeah,
"Hey, I got X amount of potholes filled, crime went down in my district, I got housing, I got this and that," but they're not effective at that. So it's a lot easier to grandstand on some kind of nonsense feel good thing instead of getting good results.
yeah. Well, sanctuary city is meaningless because um, I don't know if they've read any laws lately, but it's a federal issue, and the feds are going to come bulldoze right past you in your sanctuary city crap. So, like you said, I mean, all it is symbolism. Hey, look what we did. We're standing up to Trump, and it's like, okay, just don't let the steamroller hit you in the ass. So it's just, it's all politics.
Tom Homan's not going to care. There was maybe about 3 years ago, there was a liberal city, a blue city, or politicians. They got all pissed off because ICE was wearing raid jackets that said ICE police, and they're like, "You're not police," and they're getting all bent out of shape because they had they're law enforcement, and sheriff's departments when they contract out to cities, they go, Rancho Cucamonga police, they don't have to say, I'm the sheriff's department, I'm law enforcement. Everybody's a police, they're law enforcement. So they were getting all upset about that. And then today I was just curious about that because this came out today, and I was thinking, what if somebody was released from, and ICE knew where this bad person was who was an illegal, and they knew where he was, and he was in LA, and they in fact had an address. ICE has an address, and the guy does something bad, but they go, hey, yeah, we didn't tell you. We didn't. It was our policy not to tell you there's a murderer or something in your city, and here's the address. But does it work both ways?
Good example. At the end of the day, the average person that lives in a city, they want to live in a safe city. They don't care about sanctuary cities. Like, I want my city to be safe, where my kids could be in a park and not be surrounded by bums, and my old lady could walk down to the corner store and not get jacked.
Yep.
That's what they're for. It's the small minority throwing you know throwing bombs about all this symbolism and what have you. So, but I think this last election, they got to start listening to what the people want and not what they think they want or what they're trying to impose. They're supposed to represent the people, and they have it lopsided. They think they know better than the people, and they're not trusting what the people want in the state. And you see where the direction is after those last election results. So,
Thank God.
and even corporate America, you see the whole thing with the LA Times owner. So
Yep.
Yeah.
it's swinging the other way, fellas. But it's a pendulum this time, or a wrecking ball.
Well, I hope that LA Times owner is true to his word, not only on political stuff, but can they give a balanced reporting on LAPD? Because the LA Times, when they report something, that Liber Janney and what's the other young lady you guys mentioned, Chris
Carrie Blakinger.
Carrie Blakinger, when they report a story, it's going to be slanted against LAPD and the sheriff's department. And is he going to go? Is he going to do the same thing when they report on law enforcement, or are they still going to be slanted in their reporting?
If they
That's
even still exist anymore.
they
You know, they're
are.
they're in some trouble, and I think he knows that. And we'll see how it sorts out. But I'm sure there's going to be some lefties in there like Blakinger that aren't going to care. They're going to write the story the way they want to until they get slapped down.
I find it interesting because remember during the election and Washington Post, along with Times and whoever else, they didn't endorse Harris, and the Washington Post lost 200,000 plus
Hmm.
subscribers. And so I didn't hear anything about the LA Times, but Knocko, here's a question for you: did you retire as a D2 or D3?
D3, I mean, D2. D3 meant going to meetings and being out of the field a lot. And yeah, that wasn't, D2 was great. It was at that great in between, where you could still supervise and lead and mentor everyone, but then you're in the field, at least the position I was in. And it was all field work for the most part, but still have some of the administrative end where you could take care of people. D3 was profoundly more and more meetings and things that had nothing to do with police work. And that's not why I got into policing. So
Yeah,
everyone's saying, yeah, you got to make D3 and lieutenant. It's like, no, I don't. I, I'm perfectly happy where I was. So
yeah.
I was,
Well, Grant has a question. I don't understand. I don't know who the person is. Esteban Nunez got found out on November 5th. What do you think about this poser? I don't know who that is. Do you guys know?
Isn't that like a liberal DA from up north that got booted out?
I don't remember that name though.
Let
It
me
was a
look.
female that got booted out up in Northern California. She got recalled, but I don't know. Grant, tell us who that is, so we can kind of maybe catch up. Maybe the name doesn't. If you have questions for Nako, ask away. We are taking live questions from him. But what unit did you retire out of?
fugitive warrant section. So it
Fugitive
was
warrant
out
section.
of gang and narcotics division.
So did you
So
go out of the country?
I got to go out of state. The supervisors didn't. It was usually a two-man operation and two detectives. But if someone was a knucklehead and was going to be a problem and use of force, then I'd fly out with them and do my thing. So, yeah, and during my time there, I don't think we had any international cases, but I'm sure they've gone international, grabbed some people up. But yeah, it was great. It was probably besides. Being on in major crimes division, probably my best assignment that I had so much fun in. It was purely in the street and plain clothes, which, as you see me with a beard, I haven't shaved since like 2006, I want to say. So,
Since the
That
third grade.
right. I pretty much act like a grade school kid. So yeah, that's
There you
good.
go.
Yeah.
during the riots in '92, they mobilized the whole department, including all the undercover guys. And I saw some undercover guys that were in uniform, full uniform, and they had ponytails and beards and stuff. Because they're
It's
like, I
great.
think they go, if you're going to mobilize me, I ain't shaving. So they came out with all that stuff. Um, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm Grant, you can. I don't know how this comes into 2024, but I believe Fabian Nunez was a legislator in California back when Schwarzenegger was a governor, and his kid got popped for murder. I thought some kind of murder, and before he left office, Schwarzenegger pardoned him or something like that, and so he got off scot free. Is that the same guy? Yeah, Arnold's buddy. So, what something happened recently or something, Grant? Because I didn't hear about that. Um, and then Pamela Price was the DA who got booted. So she's number three that got taken out. What do you guys think about Gascon being gone?
Go ahead, Cap.
Oh, I was just going to hallelujah, brother. We were worried that since he's a registered Democrat, the Dems might jump in to save him at the last minute and get the vote out. But there were crickets chirping over there, and I think they realized he was toast. And Adi frickin' os, man. I was just talking about him with the wife today. Who is he? I mean, he acts like he knows better than the community at large, and he's just a smug rat bastard piece of crap. And I'm sorry if I'm being too harsh on
No, I
him.
love
You're
it. I
being
love
too
And
it.
I
kind.
and I and I hope he's watching because thank God he's unemployed. Go do something else, dude. Okay, that's my opinion.
I I echo the good captain's words. The only caveat I'll give him, he's probably one of the few people that campaigned on what and did what he said he was going to do, which
Yeah.
wasn't what we liked and what wasn't effective. But I'll give him that. He actually did everything, pretty much everything that he
Yeah,
said
you
he
know
was
what?
going
You're
to
right.
do.
You're right, and that's what cost him his job.
Yes.
It was well, on our podcast over the last couple of years, man, we've done nothing but bag on him for all the just insensitive bullshit he's been doing. And you know, I'm glad he's gone. But you know what? We're going to suffer the effect of him for a while until things settle down.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
I got Gascon memes on Instagram that I can't use anymore, but whatever. Um, what what was I going to ask you about
I met
Gascon?
Gascon actually a couple months ago at a party. I
Oh,
showed up at someone's party, and wow, that was like shaking hands with Hitler. It was a very very eerie feeling. But
was
he was very gracious to me toward me and told me some funny stories and anecdotes, and you know. But yeah, glad to see him move
was it
on.
was his voice really that high?
It was like talking to Kermit the Frog for sure. I was waiting for Miss Piggy to pop out, but
So you
Oh
know what?
man.
I've talked to a few LAPD coppers about this, but he was on the job when you and I were there, um, Knocko, and I
mhm.
swear I never heard anything. He got promoted by Gates to assistant chief and all that kind of stuff, but we were both there when he was there, and I didn't hear squat about him. Did you ever hear anything about him?
I didn't, but it doesn't surprise me. I mean, there's a lot of guys that you and I both know. They was one way in the police department, they retire and they turn into like a completely different person. And you're like, who is this guy? This wasn't the same guy I knew for 20 something years. So who knows what happened to him? Who got to him? And but yeah,
Yeah.
thankfully we'll see what this new guy could do. I mean, he endorsed Kamala, which I thought was a huge blunder. So I try to stay
Yeah.
positive, but I'm also realistic as well. So
Yeah, these guys, the sheriffs and the DAs and everything, man, those are nonpartisan positions for a reason, and they should not be in there blabbing and flapping their lips about who you should endorse. Because in the end, what does it mean? Who cares?
right.
Yeah.
I think he'll be better than Gascon, but I think he also comes with his own tricks that we'll just end up finding out about.
Mhm.
But thankfully, he pulled back the that Menendez case. Said, not so fast. I want to review it before the court gets it again. And then Newsom, ever the politician, just said, "Oh, I'm not even going to look at it until the new DA does." So hopefully that's the death knell to those two murderous rat bastards.
Yeah, Hawkman, when he was campaigning, he said two things that kind of bugged me. One, of course, is the one where he endorsed Harris,
Mm.
but the other one was a part of his platform was that he was going to hold police accountable. And I'm like, that's the same thing that Gascon said. And what does that mean? And it won't mean anything unless Hawkman gets into office and does away with that committee that reviews already adjudicated cases.
Hmm.
So, I mean, Gascon goes in there, forms a committee, adds a BLM member to it, and they go back and look at these old shootings and wonder if they can file on them. That's what they did to this LAPD guy, the guy that just that shot the homeless guy
Oh yeah, yeah.
years ago, and it was taken care of. The DA didn't file on it. Gascon decides, hey, I'm going to go ahead and file charges on this all these years later. And then Hawkman did say, yeah, that's a bunch of crap. And I think that case is going to go away. But until he does away with that committee with these activists on there, I don't think I'm going to believe him till then.
Yeah, little do people forget, but former Chief Charlie Beck actually wanted him arrested and prosecuted, and Lacey
Oh,
wouldn't do it.
oh, that's
So,
right.
yeah, so again,
Lacey was a
homegrown
good
chiefs.
DA. Lacey was a good DA.
Hmm.
I liked her.
What?
What is
What?
Passe's on crack? I don't know what he's thinking.
Narco. What is this? What does this mean?
Well,
Yes,
that's for Knocko, not Narco.
yeah.
And
I put in a good word, but they're actually fugitives like the rest of the department. It's drastically shrinking, and so are their duties. And unfortunately, it's a sinking ship right now, and they're being less and less duties involved actually being proactive and making arrests, and more in administrative duties. So fugitives, unfortunately, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone right now until they start rebuilding the department.
well, maybe Jim would be a good positive effect on that. Then
Yeah,
you
you never
know, if
know.
you never
Yes,
know.
yes.
I don't think I know anybody in the department. There was a stat. This was 20 years ago. I don't know if it still is, but there was a stat that over 50% of LEPD had 5 years or less on the job, and I might be less than that now, but yeah. So I mean, if you leave and you're gone for 5 years, people go, "Hey, can you help me with this?" I'm like, I don't know anybody
Yeah, no.
anymore.
People that I worked with when I was a captain and they were deputies are now getting promoted to commanders and chiefs, and I'm like, that guy. But time tick tock, man. Time goes on.
Here you go, Knocko. What's this question? What's the answer to this
I
question,
think the
Mike?
best law enforcement agency in Southern California right now, I think you can't go wrong with some of the suburban beach cities. They're still very proactive. They've got some really good chiefs that opposed all the nonsense that went on in the last 4 or 5 years. So if you're looking at PDs, El Segundo, Torrance, those Redondo Beach, they got some kick-ass chiefs, and they're still going out there jamming people, and are very, very well paid, well supported by the people that live in those neighborhoods. And I think you can't go wrong with that right now until the big cities catch up to what the beach cities are doing right now, where they're not forgetting what the core fundamentals are in policing, and they're not afraid to go hands on. I used to tell people, like, law enforcement, we have to use force. That's part of the definition of what we do. So all these agencies that are, preaching de-escalation to a fault and failing to go hands-on, and thereby creating these horrible uses of forces and officer-involved shootings and handicapping their officers. That's It's a horrible thing. And
Yeah.
but in the beach cities, they're still kicking ass for the right reasons. So those are some of the PDs I would highly recommend. And the signing bonuses are ridiculous. I think Torrance is offering up $100,000. El Segundo is like 40 or 60,000, plus all these other benefits, free jujitsu at Gracie University Academy.
Oh
So
yeah.
very progressive with their training and their mentality. So yeah, go
Hey,
with that.
you think I can get on? I could use 100 G's right about now.
Right
I'd
about now.
I'd be a liability, so that's probably not
Right.
going to happen.
You know who's really brutal on Instagram, and I don't know if it's an indicator of their department, but Seal Beach. they have some brutal takedowns on their Instagram when people make snarky comments about cops. They're just so they're so good. But I don't know if you ever anything about Seal Beach at all.
They definitely have. They're the best in the social media spectrum for sure.
Oh yeah,
They're, God bless their chief or whoever he is that lets these guys have free reign. But it's great. You got to have fun with it. But although I just saw it, LAPD starting to tweak. I don't know where it's coming from, but they're starting to tweak their social media
oh yeah,
profile where they're actually putting videos of doing police work instead of shaking hands and kissing babies type of soft
oh,
side of the policing. And it's like for a 21, 22-year-old kid or like me when I was coming up, that doesn't appeal to us as an 18-year-old, 6-year-old kid. They're not getting inspired by have a coffee with a cop mentality. They want to see the real side of policing, the grimy. And I think LAPD is finally changing their ways and they're pushing in that direction. So God bless whoever has the reins and tapping the keyboard on that. So they're
yeah.
catching up.
Shout out to Captain Robin Patillo over at Recruitment because she's been pushing that to do away. Because I talked to her about that. And I go, what's up with these? Uh, what do they call that mixer with a cop and stuff like that? Where recruitment's having a mixer and come and hang out with cops and talk to them and things like that, or that recruitment photo that came out of Personnel. I don't know if you guys remember it. The young lady's sitting at the bottom of Angel Flight at night. She's holding a guitar, and you're supposed to join LAPD because there's a young lady holding a guitar. I'm like, what is this? And so she's the one behind that, changing that around, because man, I don't know what they're thinking. But go right out of uh, you know, basket weaving at college and become a cop. That doesn't seem to work for me. Um, a buddy of mine sent me this yesterday. You're talking about signing bonuses. Secret Service, special agents, $40,000 recruiting bonus. Special operations, $60,000 recruiting bonus. Uniform officer, $50,000 recruiting bonus. Secret
Yes.
Service.
And you get an additional $20,000 if you could stand on a sloped roof, they said. So the benefits nonstop.
Incredible. Yeah.
I don't
Yes.
know, man. I don't know if I joined. Hey, guess what, guys? I just got hired by Secret Service. I'll be like, okay,
Why would you do that?
why would you do that?
Yeah. You know what? They've got brighter days ahead. They'll be fine.
I
Yeah.
hope so.
Yes.
Uh,
And God bless Captain Patillo. She's a good friend, and I know she's shaking it up there for the better. So,
yeah,
like I said, things are looking bright for LAPD, which just got to put the right people in the right place. And Jimmy Mack's that man. So,
I'm glad. I'm glad that at least something. I don't know anything about the mayor or something like that, but she was talking about the big thing about it about the mayor saying that morale is down and like that, and that was a focus of hers, and I think that was supposed to go into picking him. So, and I don't remember Jimmy when I was there, but all I know is the news when he left, and people were upset, and they thought he was a really really good assistant chief.
well, he was pretty much the shadow chief because Bratton was always out of town at least 50% of the time. I want to say. So I used to call Jimmy FOR because on all the correspondence they would have William
Hmm.
Bratton's signature block, and but it would be Jim McDonald 4. So I would go, hey, 4, and he didn't get it at first, and I'm like, and then I mentioned that, oh yeah, yeah, because he was running the show 50% of the time, so it was like he was the chief, and people don't realize before Bratton came in, they were friends from back in the Boston days, and I think Jimmy was an intern or whatever, and they had a friendship. And Bratton didn't know anything about LAPD when he was working for Kroll, who was implementing the consent decree, and then so he had to step
Mm.
up. He had they were going to give him the keys, but he had nothing, no knowledge of the inside scoop of how LA actually ran. So he tapped onto his good buddy Jimmy McDonald, and Jimmy McDonald literally gave him the blueprint of what to do. And unfortunately, when Bratton left, he didn't reciprocate, and which you know as a real Judas type of move. Just leave it at that. But at the end, like you see, when you go through hardships, I tell people that hardships are just really gifts in disguise. So when Jim didn't get the keys to go to become chief. Then he got experience on the Long Beach and the sheriffs, and then the sheriff's thing didn't work out. All those things were gifts to him because it ended up where he was supposed to be. And so, but he became even greater for that because of all those supposed hardships that he went through. But they really weren't. They were gifts. So that's what I try to tell people, that all these hard times you're going through, you're just going to have to find the good in them, and it'll be for the better, and it'll make sense 5, 10 years down the road sometimes.
Yeah. What do you think about that? What do you think about that salary? More than the president of the United States.
Yeah, I think yeah, these guys, for the amount of time they have to put in, and 2 or 3 hours of sleep a day, God bless them, man. Everyone should get paid more. The chief, the cops on down, the expectation and the level that they're being held accountable for, it's almost perfection. You have to, especially in critical incidents for use of force, the level of review has been nothing like hasn't been in the past from our days. So these guys are asked to do more with less, and the standard is almost 100% perfection, which is ridiculous.
Hmm.
It's not reasonable or necessary anymore. It has to be perfect. So yeah, give
Yeah,
him the 450.
he's getting paid more than Randy Adams got paid. So I don't know what's up with that, Mike.
That's saying something. I thought Randy was getting 450.
Was he?
Yeah, I think that's what he got. But think about that. That was like almost what, 15 years ago.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Do you
Yeah,
remember that Knocko? And was
big
it
big
Bell
bucks.
PD?
I
Bell,
don't.
Bell or
Oh, Bell.
Belger?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, he was getting some big
In
change
fact,
back then.
yeah, he left Glendale to go to there.
Yeah, so we got a few minutes left, and I just wanted to, because I know this is near and dear to Mike's heart. What do you guys think about the election? I mean, I thought for a minute, yeah, the polls, which are totally down the tubes, but the polls were going so close. Can't call it so close. 50-50 or 49. And I'm like, what? This is it. And so on November 5th, I'm going, man, what's going to happen? And all of a sudden it just blew up. And what were you guys thinking about that election? Are you guys happy? What the hell?
Uh, I was sporting wood. I mean, the, I was like you. I kind of started watching early because it back east, might be 5 o'clock here, but it's 8 o'clock back there. And I'll tell you what, once they called North Carolina and Georgia fell into place, I knew that was it. And people that do polling for a living need to find a new job because I think they were afraid to show the true numbers.
Mm.
And they forget that a lot of Trump supporters are not going to talk to pollsters. It's like, you go ask somebody else. So I think it's a awesome mandate, and man, I am so much looking forward to the next 4 years. I think the biggest concern I have is keeping Trump alive. Um,
Oh yeah.
it's pretty scary times that we're in. And in fact, who was it? Dale just mentioned something about the Secret Service relieved a guy of duty for. It wasn't just anti-Trump stuff he was posting; it was pro-Antifa. And I'm like, did they not screen that dude?
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, that's some pretty scary shit, especially with the one the one attempt that almost got him, the second one that would have got him if the agent hadn't to start shooting at the guy in the weeds. It's man, they better quadruple his security all the time.
Yeah. What did you think about
Yes.
all that?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. Well, I actively campaigned for Bobby Kennedy, so it was great to see him get a seat at the table with under the current administration. But I had so many people that were undercover Trump voters hit me up and say, I can never say this, but yeah, I'm definitely not voting for Kamala. And it seemed like there was so many converts I was hearing from, from friends and associates and just chatter that of hearing, on the outside. So when it happened, I wasn't surprised in the least. So, and just if you just look at the numbers when she ran in 2020 and got 1% of the vote, and she didn't even win
Oh
California, it
yeah.
was like this isn't a good candidate to put forth. So,
Wait a
yeah,
minute, she was a candidate of joy. How can you say that? And that other creepy dude that she had who kept doing those high kicks, the VP candidate.
Tim Walz.
Oh my God, what a lion! Everything he said was a lie. And they pointed out, and you know what? The press just crickets. They didn't care.
No,
She's a candidate of joy.
they're still talking today about her flawless campaign too.
Oh,
That
absolutely.
$20 million in the hole, but anyways, um,
$4.5 billion.
that's a lot of money.
4.5, and in how many months? Like 6 months or whatever it was.
That's terrible.
That's a lot of dough, man.
I got a question for Knocko, and Sonia wants to know if you like Bosch.
Huge fan of the TV series. I've never read the books. I'm not a big fiction guy, more of a nonfiction, although I'm working on a fictional book. But
Mm.
they've got some great advisors on the detective side. They pulled some guys from RHG, a guy and a gal, and they really nailed it really good. So much so where they film at a Hollywood division. I worked there for so many years. I thought it was an actual. I thought they filmed it at Hollywood Station, and it was a replica set, and it was fooled me. So great show. I love how they integrate jazz music in there. The iconic locations like
Oh
Musso
yeah,
and Frank's. They just nail it.
Yep, awesome show.
I read that they did film it at. I read a whole article about it. They did film it at Hollywood Station, but
The
they went
pilot.
clear out.
I think it was
Oh,
the
is that
very
where it was?
first one. The pilot. Yeah.
Because I was looking at that, and because I had been to Hollywood Station in Detectives too, and I'm looking at the show. I love the show, by the way, and the Legacy show. I'm waiting for the new season to come up, but I was looking at it and looking around and go, God, that looks familiar. Where is that? And then they showed the sign, the famous homicide sign says, "Our day begins when yours ends." I'm like, Dad, that is really good. And I read about it, and that was Hollywood, that first pilot, and I thought that
Yes.
crazy, man. Because I said they knocked it out of the park. The offices are right there. The desk. I mean, where do you get those old wood desks today? And
They
so,
yeah. Props to them. That and The Wire. I think one of the most realistic law enforcement serial shows out there.
yeah, I can't wait for the next season of Bosch Legacy to come out. That's a good show, and they kind of I like it where he sticks it to the to command and everything like that. So that's always my favorite.
Of course you do.
Yes.
So what I was going to ask you, what is your connection with Bobby Kennedy? Did you guys happen to know each other? How did that happen?
Well, everyone that's Irish is we're all cousins. It's a wee little island, so everyone knows each other and everyone's related somehow. It's you can only there's only so many pubs in Ireland, but yeah, my grandmother was a delegate for Jack Kennedy and campaigned for rest in peace Jack Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy's campaign. So it was just kind of a family legacy, and it's strange to see. My family was all Kennedy Democrats, and it resembles nothing of the Democratic
Oh,
Party today. So,
no.
but thank God there's people like Bobby that are keeping that tradition alive and pro peace, anti war, pro health. Just can't say enough things about him. And yeah, so just a good model. I've learned so much ways of living just outside of political spectrum, just ways how to conduct your life, and him being in recovery for like 40 something years. I mean, all just his just personal things, just marvelous guy and huge student of history. I implore everyone just to listen to one of his long form podcasts and hear him talk about history, and it'll blow your mind. His memory recall and linking the U.S. history to modern day and the future where we're going is unbelievable. How he links that all together in a layman's digestible type of verbiage. Fantastic.
Did you guys see where the New York Times thought they were going to stick it to him in an article? And there's totally got slammed for the stupidity of it. But I like Robert Kennedy. I remember I was only 10 years old when his dad died, but I remember that night my grandmother was crying, and I was sleeping on the floor in her bedroom, and she was crying. She woke me up, and I said, "What's going on?" And she said that Bobby Kennedy had been shot, and that family has such a tragic um, history. The older brother of John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy was killed in World War II. He was a pilot, and the sister, one of the sisters, um, they just had so many, just the assassinations and things like that. But what a colorful family! Talk about a dynasty And you're right that the Kennedys of old would not recognize the Democrat Party today.
Mm-mm.
No, no. And yeah, you nailed it. And then when Bobby Kennedy got assassinated, they brought him to Central Receiving Hospital over there in Rampart Division,
Yeah,
where you probably did your medical stuff there too, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, we a lot of LAPD links with that, with where we did our medical stuff, and then we did SWAT training at the Ambassador Hotel that was defunct. We did a lot of tactical training there, and then there's a great book called Special Unit Senator, which was the unit that was stood up to investigate the Bobby Kennedy's assassination. And there's some really, if you want to go down to the conspiratorial rabbit hole, look into some of that and the guys that were in charge of that case and where their origin stories lied with Central Intelligence Agency. I'll just leave it at that. Very,
Wow.
very interesting. A lot of subterfuge that went on that's not that well known.
What's the name of the? There was a book.
Yeah, I just put in Special Unit Senator in
Okay.
Amazon. Very expensive book, hard to find, but well worth the read. That and Glasshouse tapes. A lot of LAPD cops don't know their history, but the stuff that went on in the 60s and 70s as
Oh
far as
yeah.
counterintelligence and the cops that, the detectives that were in LAPD at the time, but where they're originally, like I said, their origin stories originated from will blow your mind.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough to work at Parker Center at communications when I got wheeled off probation. But that building, the history behind it, I was so sad when they had to demolish it because of asbestos and all that. But what the history behind that building is amazing. Um, but yeah,
Yes, I rummaged through there and I found some files, even on cops that were. I don't know if it was from. I think it was like a police commission file that they had on like subversive cops, and I took some photos of it and sent it to some of the guys I know. Like, hey, here's your tickler file.
oh man.
Oh yeah, they left some classified stuff behind. It's really interesting.
Let's see here. Steven says, Special Unit Senator Glasshouse tapes. LEPD needs to bring back a library. Parks got rid of the library, which was a bad
Oh, that's
sign.
right. I think there was a RHD captain and some captains followed suit after that. They would have their own little library at the station, like kind of, you check things out and, it's fiction and nonfiction. And again, just being a student of history, I think essential to know your roots to because it's going to predict where your future and your present day situation, how you got
Mhm.
there. Know your background, current and but past, because it's going to repeat itself, as we know.
Cool.
So
Well, this has been a an amazing night. I think we just touched the tip of the iceberg here, Mike. As far as Knocko goes, he's probably got a lot more stuff that
Yeah, we
he's.
can bring him back, right?
You gonna come back, Knocko?
I'll come back for a fee.
This was a free one.
All right.
The first one's
Hey,
on the house, like a drug dealer.
he's
Hey, this
oh,
one's on me.
right. So we got a taste, and then we got to pay for it after that.
Yeah, well, no, I'd love to come back and talk to you guys. I love talking to your generation and hearing your perspective, and it's great. It's beautiful. So yeah, I love what you guys are doing, and keep up the great work. I'll be listening.
I've
Groovy.
got. Hang on, just one second here. This is this will cover the night. The Tao of Knocko. The Tao of Knocko. So yeah, so guys, we should be back next week. And Steven, I want to give a shout out to Steven there who's faithful. And I want Steven to come on the show. So Steven, get a hold of me. Love to have you on here. And before we go, Knocko, do you remember Matthew Hunt was I think it was a deputy chief.
Yeah, he was
Um,
Irish as well,
oh man,
or a kind of a fake brogue. I heard he
he
had like a
well
put on brogue.
yeah, when he spoke, he had that Irish brogue, man. And, usually we hear of guys that they have the East Coast, like Jimmy McDonald with the East Coast kind of accent, but this guy he's like from Ireland. I think he was
That's what I
born in.
heard. That's what I
So
heard. But there's a guy. I think there was two guys. I read one book there's a his name was Bill Hurd, William Hurd,
Hmm.
and he was in the RUC over in north of Ireland. I won't call it Northern Ireland because it's all Ireland. It's occupied. But he was in the RUC and then joined the U.S. Army and then joined LAPD and wrote a book about his escapades and all that, which is fascinating.
Yeah, he was. We were on patrol in Wilshire together, and you would always know when you could have your back turned, and when he spoke, he had that like a British accent type of thing. And I'm friends with him on Facebook, but I haven't talked to him in a long, long time. But
Yeah, try to
great.
get him on. I'd love to hear some of his stuff.
I will get a hold of him. Great guy. Great guy. Mike, do you have anything else that you want to say?
I got nothing.
Mike's got nothing. So,
Nothing.
Knocko, thank you so much. Hang out when we close out, Knocko, and we'll kind of chit chat a little bit. But yeah, Leonard Heard was a great cop. He's still around. So thanks everybody. We'll be back.